Hello, friends. Good afternoon. I'm so joyed to be here with you. Is that a word, joyed? I'm overjoyed, rather, to be here with you. Today we have a very remarkable person joining us. And she is a woman who's had a very interesting journey in her life and who took a choice to do things differently. Because much like myself, she was a bit frustrated with many of the realities in the world today with economics, the inequality. We'll let her explain exactly what is her perspective, but she's done extraordinary things and really paving a new path for how one can live their life and how one can have a healthy relationship with money that is different for most people. And she inspires me a lot. She's very wise. She leads several large projects, but the organization, the big organization that she started, is amazing. The work they're doing, like, it almost brings tears to my eyes, like what they're actually doing. So we'll hear from her in a second about her life, about what she does, about her philosophy. Her name is Nicole Huguenin. She's tuning in from Hawaii. This show is brought to you by Karma Tribe. Karma Tribe is a global community of people willing to help each other for free. That's right, willing to help each other for free. We each have different gifts. We each have different talents. And the tragedy that I see is that we don't realize that a block away there's someone who has exactly what we need, or someone who needs exactly what we have. So this is a project that I built with the website karmatribe.com, which is a social network where you can make a profile and then offer anything you would like or request anything you would like. And we've already grown to 56 countries, lots of people helping each other. In many ways, there's all kinds of language classes offered, technology help, mentoring, many things on Karma Tribe. So I would encourage you to check it out at karmatribe.com. And this week, or this month rather, we happen to be crowdfunding. We are reaching out to the community and asking for some help to grow Karma Tribe to the next phase. And you can see all about our campaign by going to this link at the bottom of your screen, karmatribe.com/I believe. And this is if you believe in the power of community and the power of collaboration, because that's what Karma Tribe is unleashing, is that potential collaboration that exists. We are trying to make it manifest into reality, and it's already happening. So we would appreciate your support if you have a few dollars to donate to this cause. But first things first is that you should check out the actual website and how it works, and I think you'll be really, really pleased to be a part of it. So thank you for joining me today. Without any further ado, I would like to bring on the remarkable Nicole Huguenin. Hello, Nicole.
Hello! This is the most exciting introduction ever.
Nicole, stop it. So you're joining us from Hawaii. Wow, and the weather looks beautiful there.
Yep.
Nicole, can you please tell us a bit about your journey from the beginning?
The beginning. You know, the beginning really is, my parents grew up in Pennsylvania, and they always loved sunshine and California. And so we drove across the country, and I think when I was 5 to California. And I think it was at that point in time where I was young enough to not be distracted by other things, that all I really had to do, and I'm sure my parents have a different version of this, but all I had to do was look outside and and become an observer. And so I took that then, growing up in Silicon Valley during the 90s, 80s and 90s, I started to observe some things. And as I got older, they didn't rectify in my heart. And I didn't know, for a very long time, I thought something was wrong with me. I thought that there was, because I wasn't really understanding or going along with the status quo, that I was wrong, or there was something wrong with me. And so I internalized it for a while. but I let me give you an example. Like I think the very first one of these kind of heart moments where my heart was screaming at me to pay attention to it came in maybe junior high, but more so high school, of just the kids that were bused to my high school were all African American, almost all African American, and while as the kids that were driven by their moms and just had a lot of things were all white. And I couldn't quite rectify that. I didn't know about this sitting in around me. We had moved into this new place, and it just was a new phenomenon to me. And I didn't really have people to ask questions about why, but I just observed it, and it didn't sit right. But I kept going along, and let's see. Then I got to college, which is a whole nother story in and of itself. I'm so thankful that I got the gift to go to college, which wasn't always going to be the case for me, coming from a family where neither of my parents went to college. And I graduated college right as the Silicon Valley boom is just like, it's not bursting yet. The bubble is just like at its biggest. And I had friends from my very state school college majoring in art history and art, getting jobs in the tech industry with zero experience, making $70,000, $90,000 out the door, out the door of college. And that was another thing that just wasn't rectifying in my heart. And I recall a week before I physically left college to return back to the Bay Area, 2 hours down south from where I was, I went on a run, which was rare for me because I just like that discomfort of something's wrong. Like, am I sick? I didn't really know the difference between, I don't have a spiritual background. I didn't have a religious background. So I didn't know how to rectify when my emotions felt discomfort and my heart was just like, something's off here. I really thought I was mentally like not fit well. And so I went for a run to get that out. And I got lost in this beautiful park called Bidwell Park. And I turned a corner and I just remember sobbing. And my heart I finally was listening to my heart. And it just said, just do good work. And at that point, I probably was very judgmental and said, don't sell out like everybody else. But I just recall just thinking to myself, I'm going to do good work. And I don't know what that means. I'm sure I was a recipient of nonprofit style work. I didn't know what a nonprofit was up until that point. And I just didn't know what that meant. So when I went back home, I started volunteering, and that turned into a job in the nonprofit field. And I experienced a lot of things working in the nonprofits, which I'm sure we'll get to later. So I'm going to kind of skip over a big, huge chunk of time to when I finally kind of got to a point of burnout, which is a common thing with me. When I can't rectify things, I burn out, because I also only had examples of martyrs. I only had examples of folks that found their worth or was told that their worth was in the time that they gave to something like a job. And so that's what I learned. Those were the behaviors I learned. And so I gave a lot of time to doing good work, to the point of burnout. So then I became a teacher, a high school teacher. I kind of repeated this cycle, but my heart was screaming at me the entire time I was a high school teacher. Just witnessing racism, classism, witnessing kind of the outcome of society of just kids in such wanting answers. I think at 16, 15, 16, we're all seeking answers. But just sitting in a classroom and just knowing that the answers that I was told to give them are never going to, they just aren't, they're head answers. They're not heart answers. They're, you know, like there's just one way. It was just one equation that was offered. And so I burnt out again. And then I went back to, I went and did some traveling, learned some Spanish, just kind of was like, maybe there's something wrong with me. Again, I had this like story, this narrative that something's wrong with me. Why can't I fit in? What's wrong with me? Like I wasn't asking what's wrong with society yet. I was just kept asking, what's wrong with me? That I can't fit in. Why am I not okay with wanting a house and, 2 kids, a marriage, and, you know, like these things that I think everybody around me was getting after college and following. And I just was never satisfied with that. So after I kind of did traveling and found none of those answers, like no, I couldn't find anything. I just had fun traveling through Ecuador, which is a beautiful, lovely country, but also in places like Ecuador, experiencing community, experiencing wealth outside of money. Same with some of the communities that I was teaching in as well, just experiencing connection at a level that hadn't been touched by money yet. And although there are some deep poverty-ridden troubles in, say, Ecuador, but and in some of the communities that were surrounding where I grew up, there was also, like, I just remember feeling fulfilled. And there was a certain part of me that was connected to my fellow human being, connected to the land, connecting to the animals. I'm the pup. I love your pup. You're jumping up right now. He's like the coolest. And so I kept observing. I think that muscle of observing turned to listening. And then when I stopped traveling, I went back to nonprofits again. And I experienced more racism. I experienced more classism. I experienced just watching and observing very well-meaning people. I don't think I ever met a bad person. I met a lot of good people wanting to do good work that were in systems that allowed maybe some issues to get solved, but never the problem. And it persisted. And I watched a lot of people burn out, or a lot of people find kind of fame in doing good, but I knew that they were also depressed, or I knew that they were about to get a divorce. Like, there was always a cost to it, to their doing good. And I got to a point where I actually was I think I had burnt out. I had gone through maybe 4 cycles of 2 to 4 years of giving, and then burning out and having to stop. And then I was lucky that I had like grad school. I looked good in that phase of burnout. Like, I could hide the burnout and go to the next phase of life. But sometimes, the very last time though, there was no looking good left. It was a mess, and it impacted a lot of people. But I finally just burnt out for the last time. I was closer to suicide than I ever would like to be again for anyone in my life. Overweight. Like the only thing that was working, I remember looking at my hand one day and the only thing that was working was my work. I knew I was doing good work. It wasn't great work, but it was good work. But I was working 70 hours a week. I was on the highway for 3 hours a day, minimum, if not 5 hours a day. I was making, I think at that point, the most I've ever made in my life is $50,000 a year, just because of the industry that I've been in. And yet I was surrounded by people that were making $500,000 and working half of what I did and getting to go on vacation, and all of their food is paid for, and their bus to work when they get to go to Google and Apple and Facebook. I mean, it's right. It was in my face. And I just broke. I broke. And I just, and I couldn't keep a relationship because I was too tired. I never saw my friends. At this point, rent in San Francisco had really started to rise to the point where I probably, for the last couple years that I was there, I was always in the hole. Like always, no matter what I did, if I never went out, I only bought groceries and paid rent, I was still in the hole. And then it was like groceries, transportation, and rent. And that was it. That's all I had the money for. And so I just broke. And that break was, I think with $500 in the bank account, I said, okay, I got to go figure out what's wrong with me. I was still in that story too of what's wrong with me. And I knew that I couldn't repeat the cycle, that I would not survive if I just got a new job or if I just moved to a new place, that it was at the end of this cycle, that I needed to create a new context for my life because I had switched through so many pieces of content that there was no content left to switch. So at that point, I ended up, I think the cheapest ticket out of San Francisco was to Denver. And I was able to crash on the couch of a futon of a friend of a friend of a friend. I knew no one. One of my kind of only stipulations is I want to know no one, because I don't trust myself to not take on other people's problems and distract myself. I have to show up to myself. And I thought I could do that in a month's time. Figure it all out in 1 month. So I for about a month, I slept, I ate rice and beans because I had no money. I watched Game of Thrones. I think at that point there were only 2 seasons, and I watched those 2 seasons maybe twice, 3 times. I walked a lot. And on the 28th day, I met an older woman at a coffee shop, a 72-year-old older woman. And in this conversation, very, very kind of common to me, in this conversation, I had something happen, which happens to me a lot, where this 70-year-old woman just said, "Can I share my wish with you?" I said, "Certainly." And she said, "I wrote this book a really long time ago, and I don't need to get any money from it. I just want to see a child holding it. Because really my wish is that I want all the children that are suffering in the world to know they have a friend in nature." And I'm like, why is she, my inner voice is like, why is she sharing that with me? And I instantly just knew that I was supposed to help this woman. And I think that month off, I had to be so quiet with myself that my heart could speak to me and I actually could listen and trust it and not be scared to move forward in what was next. And so I told the woman, my flight was 2 days away, and I told the woman, I'm going to fly home to San Francisco, and then I'm going to pack my stuff up, and I'm going to be back to help you with your book. And that was 5 years ago, and that's what I did. And that then kind of starts, that's what really got me to where I am now, and all the experiments I do in just a different way, and really and I'll hand it back over to you to ask questions and dig into what I'm doing now. But really the commitment that came out of what I didn't want, what I don't want for my life is, for me, I got to experience the things that don't work. For me, like I gotta watch, and that's a privilege in and of itself. I gotta watch racism, right? I've experienced my own kind of issues with sexism and sexual assault and rape and that sort of things. But like I got to watch and observe a lot of things happen that weren't working. And I simply chose to be a person that works on the underlying problem outside of the system. And that doesn't mean, that's just my personal commitment, is that I'm just experimenting outside of the system to see if there's another way. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of good in the systems and working on the issues and also working on the problems. Just I tried it and it just wasn't for me. And so my commitment is to kind of continue to just play outside the systems and see what else is out there.
Wow. Yeah. So I can certainly relate to that with Karma Tribe, trying to make something happen outside the system when you're just really disillusioned and frustrated with everything in the system.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind, I would like you to continue a bit more with your story, because, like, I mean, I know your story is like very long. There's so many different things, but that woman that you ended up committing to helping, you ended up moving in with her, right? She ended up having like some extra space that no one was using, and so that ended up being exactly what you needed. And then from then on, your commitment to walk with people and help them find their dreams, that ended up turning into like a large organization, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a bit about like what's been happening over the past few years?
Yeah. So I want to be clear. For 2 years, I helped this woman and we became friends. Her name's Diane. And if anybody knows suffering, this woman knows suffering. Her husband, they were married very young. Her husband was a functioning alcoholic. When he got sober, he died within a month of lung cancer. Her daughter committed suicide a couple months after that. Diane herself, in between her daughter passing away and her writing the book, she wrote the book and then she found out that she had cancer. And so this woman that I am now, I mean, she's like my adopted grandmother. She knows suffering and she understands the world. She reads incessantly, and yet she's kind of stuck to her home. And she suffers from some mental illness. She's aging quickly. And so for 2 years, I would help her just as a friend. And I was still figuring things out. I was doing side jobs. I mean, I gave myself a long time. I literally was just hustling to pay the bills. I didn't have the trust and faith in myself to do anything else. I thought it would just be two lives. One life where I could pay my bills and do work, and this other life where I did good. I thought that was maybe the answer for 2 years. And then during that time, I also thought, well, I met this woman on a coffee shop. I wonder if I could take it out of the coffee shop and do some walking with people and just share dreams. And simply because I found that as a teacher, we held those dreams in, those things that are in our heart. And, like, for example, culturally, we always say, oh, don't share your birthday wish or it won't come true. Wow. Right? Like there's little things like that, right? When you're an outside the system thinker, those little things are like these big red lights, like stop, pause, listen, what's the impact? And that is like just a small, tiny blip of what happens inside of me, especially as I exercise those kind of outside the box muscles. It's just constant. So I just started leading weekly walks. Didn't charge anything. Just said come and share a dream, and then what happened though is after time, people would share kind of typical things like I want to fall in love. I actually want to get a divorce. I want to travel. And every once in a while, there would be someone that had this dream, very much kind of like you and Karma Tribe, just it was a dream that was bigger than themselves. That was, would clearly do a lot of good. And a lot of times those dreams to them sounded crazy. And because they weren't the traditional way of doing things. They weren't a traditional nonprofit. They weren't a traditional way of living a life. And so I would just listen. And then if I had the time, I would just help them. And I'd kind of be like their first friend on that path. And one day my heart just kind of, as I got more and more aligned to this stuff, I was still hustling on the side, like, still paying my bills on the side. And, but my heart was just I was more aligned to good, what goodness meant. That the day came when I'd led several walks, like months, like years of just a walk once a week or once a month, I can't remember now. That and then helped a couple more people out with their dreams. And then like people started noticing, like my friends from Silicon Valley started noticing, they're like, people are coming, they're actually going to walks. Like, let's commodify it. Let's make let's make a business out of it. And like, okay, so you're going to become a coach now and you're going to coach people on their dreams. Like you're going to be a dream coach. And that means that you've got to, like there was this whole equation of me having to promise that I would make people's dreams come true. And I was just like, what? There's no way. I can't even make my own. I don't even know what my own dreams are right now. And so all of a sudden the path of what I should have been doing once I found something, just, like so many people around me couldn't sit in the uncertainty of what I was doing. And I don't think I even had the tools at the time, but I knew what was at stake. I knew it was my life at stake. I had felt so deeply the depression that was tied to misalignment of my head and hand and heart. So by walking, right, I'm physically, my hand, that's the Gandhian thing, like I'm walking hand and I'm aligning my heart and I'm allowing my head and my heart to have a conversation moving forward. And so I followed the advice of friends and I tried to charge for these walks for a very first time. And it just changed the whole game. I was out of it. And, all my friends are like, you got money issues. You got to face your money stuff. And so I did. I had a couple coaches and what it really came down to, and I was just like, no, I just am offering this and I have the time to give. My bills are being paid. Those two things are separate. And one day I just said, no, you know what? I am going to run a business and I know there's another way. And I started looking for other people that had done it a different way. And I reconnected to an organization that I had signed up for an email list years earlier as a teacher. And that organization at the time was charity focused. Now it's called Service Space. And I just sent one of those like Hail Mary emails to their founders saying, I'm like wanting to lead these walks and share dreams and maybe sometimes help people with their dreams. I don't want to charge money. It seems to change the dynamic. I don't quite understand this, but I know that you run your organization in a way. Can we talk? He said, sure. And the next time I was in the Bay Area, I went on a long walk with him. I went to kind of some of their programs that they host. And I learned about the gift economy. And I knew right away that for me, it was like walking felt like home. And home was this space where you're connected with people. You don't have to be like sitting at a table and knowing people deeply, but you're still connected. Like you could be in different rooms and know that you're still in the house together. And that's what a walk was. It's like we didn't have to agree on things. We could just walk with each other. And we could feel the connection, even if what we're saying are totally like diabolical in nature. And I experienced what felt like home when I was hanging out with this one of the founders of Service Space. And I just knew, my heart knew, okay, this is how I'm going to run this organization, which at the time I called Wild Dream Walks. Now it's called Dream Together. And so over the past 3 years, I think at the start of 2015, so maybe, no, yeah, so it's been I'm in my third year of doing this. I just help people with their dreams. Sometimes they know I'm doing it. Sometimes, like there's some people we absolutely are working together every week and building big organizations, or there's one woman, Winter Pilgrim, who's been a pilgrim that's walked around the world 33,000 miles. So there's no organization. She purely does it because she wants to walk and practice the word of Jesus. And I'm not, that's her thing, but I just believe in like kindness, and that's what she does. Is she just she walks, so I just support her. And I just charge $0. And that was that's a big experiment for me. Is at first it was like that decision was based off of money, because I just saw how money was a connector of all the issues for me. At first, I thought that's what it was, and really that charging $0 is a scary thing. I have to pay rent. I have to have food, and yet the experiment was calling me such that I've been okay. I don't know how to say it. Like, I think you should start asking some questions, but like for me, in the past 3 years, I have not counted how many people I have invested my time or friendship or whatever into. I don't count it. I don't do any marketing for it. And yet I have been probably just as busy as I was when I was a teacher. But I also have had all my needs met. And I'm going to make a distinction. Needs and wants are very different. There's been some strain when I'm hanging out with friends, and I don't have the same type of finances that friends have, and I can't, sit at happy hour and just throw them back. And that has been hard. But my most basic needs have been met, and it's opened up my world to forms of wealth that I value just as much as I value money. And I think that's something to maybe jump into. Is a lot of people, when people hear the gift economy, I like the term we economy better a little bit. I'm shifting that, but there's a few things to like talk about gifts. But for me, there's a gift economy kind of there's some people that practice it where it's just no money. For me, I think the intention of money, what it was invented for, is actually much needed in our world. And so I don't think money's evil. I don't think it's bad. What I think is we've created we've given the money the ability to value everything for us. So when we go to share our homes, our things, we've placed, instead of maybe sharing something else that we have, kind of, we can talk about Karma Tribe, how that helps us value other things without money. But, like this Airbnb, put a money tag on your extra bed in your extra bedroom if you have one, instead of just simply being kind and sharing it to someone that needed it. And And there's nothing wrong with that, but there are other ways, there's things to look at where you value things, just other forms of wealth, just as much as money. So my own personal wealth has been expanded. My own worth, I think, has also, I finally realized that, maybe half of what was going on with me was my own lack of tools and background, not having spiritual practices, not coming from a religious family. But the other half really was not me. It was really this where I came from in the world, and all these kind of habits that I created, or that were created for me from the media, from the way money is kind of used to show value and worth. And it just didn't align. So, yeah, so I'll pause there. So I started Dream Together. I invest in dreams. I invest things. I'm a full-blown investor, and sometimes I have money. Like the other day, I had money for the first time, and money beyond my basic needs, and I threw some towards the crowdfunding campaign. And so other times, though, I have friendship. Other times I have compassion. I have these things that are infinite, like joy, or listening is infinite. If, like love is infinite if you really can tap into it. And so, and sometimes I can build a website. Like there's all these things, skills that I have all over the place that I can invest into people that are doing good, that are, making the world better. So I'll pause there. And then maybe you could ask about certain dreams, but it's up to you.
Certain dreams? Sorry, I think I cut out there for a moment. What do you mean about certain dreams?
Oh, like I know, Walk to Connect, right, is one of the dreams. And I'm just going to throw out their names and people can look them up, or we can link them. Like some of the more outward facing dreams that I've invested in is Walk to Connect in Denver, Colorado. Chili's on Wheels, which is based out of New York, but is all over. And the Winter Pilgrim and Society of Servant Pilgrims, and another organization, Spark U, which is an amazing organization, and then this woman, Sydney, in New Mexico, Mindful New Mexico. Just those are all organizations, and there's countless other dreams that I've just invested in, and they're kind of cool to look up because they're all kind of just doing things just a little bit different. It's experimenting. Maybe there's another way. And I think that's a sign of a really healthy society, when we all don't have to be thinking the same, when we allow for people to experiment, just in case. It doesn't matter if anything comes from those experiments. It matters that we're experimenting with other ways, just in case, right? That what our current experiment isn't working. And maybe if we're not experimenting, then what are we left with? Like we're left with starting from ground zero, and we don't necessarily have to. So, yeah.
So we have Anella tuning in saying that's beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Nella.
So Nicole, where do you think that we start to really get it wrong? Like when we're raising kids, what do you think is like a main thing that we should be doing differently so that people are like see wealth differently from a young age?
Oh my gosh. Number one, the kids get it. Kids get this. I'm a high school teacher, or I was a high school. I'm still a teacher at heart, but high school kids really get it, and they're old enough to realize that society is saying, no, you can't get it. Like, no, that's not the way, right? And they want to kind of push them along in one certain path. But little kids get it, And I'm trying to think of a tangible example, maybe with my nieces. Just the way they observe the world, and they get kindness, and I think they get stopped when the world, when that observation of what the world could be that I think comes from them isn't the way that it actually works with them, right? And for me, the more we prescribe one way of doing things, the more we're gonna, I would conjecture, end up with mental illness, physical illness. And it's hard. As a teacher, it was so hard to teach in many different ways for many different people. And yet at the same time, it was really easy. There were points where it was really easy. And there were points where I completely didn't follow the rules. Like, I had one kid, and every once in a while I'll check in on him, but he had a sleeping disorder, and yet they would keep scheduling him for morning classes, and he just physically could not get up. It wasn't the normal teenage, like, not getting up. This kid could not, still to this day, cannot get up before noon. There's just, like, they physically found what was going on in his brain to cause it. And, but he was assigned to my morning class, right? Every other teacher is marking him absent, getting angry at him. Like, he was suffering these, like, major repercussions for not getting to school on time. And so instead, I just marked him present, and then told him that when he finally got to school, he just needed to I was always at school until 7 at night anyway, so it was either coaching or working on something, to just find me, and we'd develop his lesson plan together. And he did. That kid showed up. Every day he was at school, he showed up. And it wasn't that hard. It really wasn't. So I think it's like, kind of just get out of the way. Allow kids to be kids. Like, create a container rather than the path. And, so that they can sail the sea. And they might end up in a totally different place than you wanted them to go, but they're still going to end up somewhere, and it's probably going to be a beautiful thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love what you said. I think that we tend to, like, want to prescribe a path, right, to the students. Like, maybe you should take this path. Maybe you should take this path. And, and you could get this job if you go here. You could get this job if you go here. But there's no emphasis on, like, why don't you discover how you can make your life as pleasant as possible for yourself? Because once you are really happy with how your life is, you're going to be treating everyone around you really well.
Right. And you know what that comes down to, because it comes down to trust. Trust in each other. I think what we could spend all day listing out how we mistrust each other. And it's all over the news. It's just mistrust after mistrust. We spent all day on that. And I think, people sometimes put me on this kindness platform, and it bothers me, because we shouldn't have to put kindness on a platform. It's still part of our human nature. And when we put on a platform, it kind of is like, only this person has it and that person doesn't, and it's division. For me, like, it drives me nuts. It's like that kindness comes from me asking myself, how can I create trust between me and this person? And I miss the mark a lot. And so, I miss the mark more often than not. And And so then I am looking at, well, if I keep asking the question, then it's just cleaning that relationship up, right? Community is messy, and it always has been. It's not supposed to be utopian. And it's also not supposed to be dystopian, which is where we're at right now, right? Like, it's yin and yang. There's both, and we got to find that balance. And that balance is asking, a question like trust. How can we trust our kids? How can we really build a system that trusts our kids, that they'd actually work towards their happiness? Like, do we trust them to find that? And I think a lot of people would say no.
Even the system of grades shows distrust, and shows basically that everyone's a little bit different and in a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Where like it's a structure that creates competition and distrust and hierarchy, I think.
Yeah. And I think there's healthy competition. Oh God, I just read a story the other day that was that gave a really good example of healthy competition. But when it's unhealthy, it's like that's when you create these hierarchies, right? And that's when you create these paths. I think for me, like, I just entered into I guess from certain standards, I just entered into a relationship. That's why I moved from Denver to Maui, and it's funny to me because I'm turning 40 in less than a month, and I have this relationship, and all of a sudden there are so many more people relating to me and happy for me, and like that I found this relationship that was like, that's what should define me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm happy, and I'm happy that you're happy for me. And yet I'm almost 40. I've been doing a lot of stuff. And I've been in relationship with a lot of people, not just romantic, right? But just in like doing good. And that like for me is just this other example of the equation, right? The equation of what I was supposed to do with my life and when I should be happy or not be happy. That just doesn't work for me. In fact, it pisses me off. It pisses me off a lot.
Like the fact that people put like a romantic relationship up on a pedestal.
Yeah, that's the hierarchy. Like that's what actually has given me just recently, since I've been on one. It's actually given me more credibility to my name simply by being in a committed relationship at 40. And I'm like, it's fascinating to me. Like, really? Like, okay.
It's funny how it's almost like just like a general kind of like misunderstanding in our world that we think external circumstances like lead to happiness.
Right.
No one seems to get that it has nothing to do with your external circumstances. It only has to do with your internal
right.
Your internal alignment within yourself and your perspective.
Right. Yeah. And I've been struggling with that one. So I've been on this experiments, for 3 years. Like true, just I'm living in gift economy. And at first I had a lot of women come to me and say, oh, I could never do it because I have a family and relationship and responsibility. And I actually was like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you're living at your needs, right? And I put a lot of the privilege that I knew I had, I put on the line. And then I got into a relationship, and all of a sudden the mantra changed from, oh, I could never do what you do, to, oh, well, he must be supporting you. That's why you can do what you're doing. And it's, I'm like, oh, those things, I just want to squeeze it out of people. There's been a lot of things, I think, over the past year that I've had to grapple with my own inner happiness of things like validation, right? I think you and I were talking about this the other day, or maybe it might have been someone else, but for me, I've seen the side of myself that kind of plays into that equation and it likes to be validated. And yet, like, every time I seek validation, it doesn't really actually connect to happiness. It connects to something else. It's like, that's what I notice. I observe that inside job, right? Like the inside job of happiness. And so for me, my experiments right now have been, I've kind of just cut off as much as I can, as much validation, outside validation as possible. It's hard to get away from. I don't, people say to me like all the time, you need to get up on stage, you need to tell your story. And I do. And yet, or maybe, we all do. We all deserve to tell our story. But right now, I don't trust myself. If I'm basing everything, like this whole gift economy equation on trust, I don't trust myself to not be righteous. And I don't trust, like there are certain things I don't trust myself with. So I'm just working on those things on myself before I try to have any type of, I don't even want to try to have stage. One of the things I've learned in the experiment is it'll come to you. Like it will always, there has been no lack of things coming to me to do, like no lack of opportunity to do good work, no lack of opportunity to tell my story. When I've tapped into the wealth of the world, the infinite wealth of the world, I tapped into abundance and the mindset that comes with that. And I've also, though, had to tap into scarcity and true scarcity and like, really understand that as well. And those, being able to kind of be in both places of like really understanding abundance, but to do that, you have to really understand scarcity. It's not easy to do at all. And I've been really messy with it and really, but that's experiments. Like that's science, right? If you're not making a mess, is it science? I don't know. And I'm gonna have to walk with you because my I'm gonna run out of balcony.
Give us a tour.
This is my rooftop balcony. That's the ocean. Yeah. Well, so yeah, I've been talking a lot. What else?
The thing is, you're so sensitive to the world around you, and so you have like so many different observations and so much. Like, I feel like you're the type of person that could like look at a flower and like describe it for an hour, and that's
totally.
that's the sensitivity of someone who's like experiencing life from their own experience, from their own perspective, and not just putting things in boxes because of what everyone else is telling them around, which is how most people live, like immediately jumping to judgments and not like experiencing life for themselves. And I think that's like the source of much of these problems.
Yeah.
Is because like when you experience like kindness, you realize like it's so good for me and it's so good for the other person and it's so good for the other person watching, and it has nothing to do with like elevating your own sense of self or your own ego or anything like that. It's just a pleasant thing of human nature that's actually very natural to us. And
right.
children spend their time like staring at stuff and not really judging things and just asking lots of questions and exploring. And so I think it's amazing how you live your life. Mm-hmm. And I think you do need to be careful to like be able to like accept compliments.
Right. Yes.
Because, for example, when someone says like, "Oh, I'm so happy that you found someone,"
right.
It's not necessarily that they're always judging that, oh, she's going to be happier because she found someone now. It's also because they love you and they think like that might make you happier, so they're happy about that. So I think like one thing I've been learning is like giving is like is the same as receiving. Like they're like two poles of the same magnet. And I think to be able to live in a world where there's more giving, we need to live in a world where there's more receiving.
100% agree with that. And it's funny because I think when I have given talks before, when I first started giving them, I was very righteous, and I was always kind of saying, like, you know, people should take on the same experiments as me, and, you know, we should all be living in the gift economy. And it became very clear to me, like, that's not at all what you want, Nicole. Right? It's not what makes you. It's not what would make you happy. And so then when I took a look at that, it was coming from a place of, like, I want people to join me in these experiments. Like, I want to feel connected in that way. I don't want my experiments to disconnect me from others that are living their life in their way. And it felt like that sometimes. But I also realized these experiments are so much easier for me to do in business than they are to do in my personal life. And some people are flipped that. Like, some people can experiment in love and the way they love and who they love and how they love. And then, like, you get to business and they have to have business exactly, like, you know, they have to run the equation that way. And I'm just the opposite. And I'm also sensitive, right? Like, my gift is also the source of my pain. And that's okay. Like, that's part of it. And yet I still do need to learn to take a compliment, for sure. Right? I totally do.
Yeah, like, I think you're an example. I hope this doesn't offend you, but, like, how your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. Like, I think it's true for everyone, but especially you, like, your high sensitivity and compassion towards others, like, makes you, like, acutely aware of all the injustices in the world. Right. And so yeah, like, I think like, we still have to, like, embrace our gifts as you are choosing to do, and realize that we are like active participants in, like, creating the world that we want.
Right.
We're not just, like, little cogs in a world or little observers in this crazy world. We're creating the world of tomorrow.
Right.
And so yeah, and Nicole. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I keep forgetting to kind of say the definition of a gift. And, like, when you're talking, all I keep seeing is an infinity symbol. And that kind of just defines my life, is, like, really understanding what that infinite loop is. And I mentioned earlier my kind of that service space who I kind of follow and participate in and give to often. They say, actually, it's a step further than that, than the infinity loop. It's like a Mobius strip. And I'm gonna link to, I'll send you the link, but I'm gonna link to a really good article about what a Mobius strip is, because at any point you can see anybody, no matter if it's their back and where they are in the journey, in a Mobius strip. But it is this, like, it is the true definition of a gift. You can only have a gift if you continue to give it, right? Like, when you keep hold on to something, it's no longer a gift. And so, like, learning to give and freely give, right? Like, no strings attached. Like, I'm not going to give my partner, I'm not going to make them dinner because I want them to be a certain way, or I want them to feel a certain way. You're just making dinner because it gives you joy to give that. There's something in that, like, exploring what a gift is, that is, allows you then to receive. Because you realize, if your joy is in giving, then you're actually blocking people's joy when you block them giving you something. It's like, and that all just, like, trusting the infinite loop.
Well, Nicole, we're out of time. It's been so great having you on the show and sharing your stories, sharing your insights. I feel like we've only hit the tip of the iceberg, so I hope you'll join us again in the future.
Yeah, anytime.
And thank you so much for your work and for being a Karma Tribe member and supporter, and for being my mentor and friend on these subjects.
Oh, well, we both are friends to each other, so absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank everyone for watching and joining us today, and hope everyone has a great day.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.